Welcome back to Training Muscle Lengths, Part 17, the forearm. We're going to be talking a lot about supination, pronation, a lot of wrist movements. So real quick, just want to point out the brachialis. We did not cover that on the biceps video. That is an elbow flexor that plays no role in supination or pronation and only crosses the elbow joint. Classic movement here is some sort of a neutral hammer type curl. Fully extended at the elbow is lengthened position. Fully shortened at the elbow is shortened. Similarly, the brachioradialis crosses the elbow joint, runs from the humerus down to the radius, as you can probably guess from the name. It's also an elbow flexor, and we don't really include it in our supinators or pronators, but it is in its strongest position when you are semi-pronated. And that's where you would see people suggest something like a reverse curl on an easy bar, where you end up with a semi-pronated forearm position. Brachioradialis lengthened with the elbow extended, shortened with it flexed. Speaking of supination and pronation, supination is where your palm is up, as if you were going to drink soup out of your hand, and pronation is when your thumb is down. Basically what happens is your radius, which is by your thumb, right? Rad. Thumbs up. It rotates around the ulna. So the forearm has joints within it. We think of proximal and distal radial-ulnar joints being where most of that motion occurs. The main muscle for supination is very conveniently named the supinator, and both heads of the biceps brachii assist. This is the point at which training the forearm gets maybe a little too nitty-gritty to really make much of a difference. We're starting to talk about loading supination and pronation, so I'll take that for what it's worth. But basically, the supinator would be shortened, fully supinated, and lengthened, fully pronated. Pronators are also conveniently named pronator teres and quadratus. Opposite of supinator, they are lengthened in supination, shortened in pronation. Now you can technically load supination and pronation. There's cool old Nautilus machines that do that, or even some traditional Indian club type work, or the good old rice bucket stuff. But in the context of hypertrophy, this is probably not the most important. We'll now focus on the wrist, which motions are pictured here. We're going to focus on flexion and extension because that's the main way we train the wrist. Main wrist flexors of interest are the flexor carpi, ulnaris, and radialis. Ulnaris runs along the ulna, radialis runs along the radius. They originate on the humerus, so they technically cross the elbow joint, although we don't really treat them as elbow flexors, and they end up inserting into the hand. They flex the wrist, so they're shortened in flexion, lengthened in extension, or technically hyperextension. On a wrist curl with our palms up, they'd be lengthened here and shortened here. On the flip side, we have all these extensors here. Very similar nomenclature: extensor carpi, ulnaris, radialis, and there's actually two: radialis longus and brevis up there, along with others. Opposite concept for our extensors: lengthened in flexion, shortened in extension and hyperextension. If we take that exact same movement and just flip our palms, so we're now pronated, we have a lengthened position with flexion and shortened position with extension. There's way more that goes into the hands and figures, but this is just a forearm video. Reminder that this series is in a playlist on my profile. We have an ebook coming out with how to put this information in a training plan, as well as a completed plan you can follow, so stay tuned.